The dust on the trail had caked so thick on Amanda's boots that she could barely remember what color they used to be, and her father's labored breathing from the wagon behind her had become the only sound that mattered in the whole wide world. She urged the horses forward through the September heat of 1874, her eyes fixed on the cluster of buildings rising from the Montana plains ahead. Marysville appeared like a mirage, wavering in the afternoon sun, but it was real enough, and somewhere in that town was medicine that might save her father's life. The journey from their homestead had taken 3 days longer than it should have. Her father, Thomas Garrett, had caught pneumonia 2 weeks back, and what started as a cough had turned into something that rattled in his chest like stones in a tin can. Their nearest neighbor, old Mrs. Fletcher, had done what she could with poultices and prayers, but finally she had gripped Amanda's hand tight and said there was nothing for it but to get him to a real doctor, or at least to someone who could supply proper medicine. Amanda was 22 years old and had never made this journey alone. Her mother had died bringing her younger brother into the world, and that brother had lived only 3 days after. For the past 17 years, it had been just her and her father, working their small cattle operation and vegetable garden, making do with what the land provided. Her father had taught her to shoot, to ride, to read the weather and the tracks of animals. He had never treated her like she was fragile, which was why she knew how bad things were when he did not argue about her driving the wagon into town. The main street of Marysville stretched before her, busy with afternoon commerce. Cowboys lounged outside the saloon, their hats pulled low against the sun. A general store proclaimed its wares with hand-painted signs. The blacksmith's hammer rang out in steady rhythm. And there, at the far end of the street, she spotted a painted sign that read "Medical Supplies and Remedies." She pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the building and set the brake. Her father was asleep or unconscious, she could not tell which, wrapped in blankets despite the heat. She climbed down, her legs stiff from the long drive, and approached the door with determination she did not quite feel. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, and she found herself in a neat, well-organized space that smelled of herbs and alcohol, and something clean she could not name. Shelves lined the walls, filled with bottles and jars of every size. A long counter dominated the center of the room, and behind it stood a man who looked up at her entrance. He was tall, with shoulders that spoke of hard work rather than mere genetics. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at his collar, and his eyes were the color of good whiskey held up to lamplight. He wore a simple shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars and new bruises. He was perhaps 30 years old, maybe a year or two more, with the kind of face that looked serious in repose but might transform with a smile. "Help you, miss?" His voice was lower than she expected, rough around the edges like he did not use it much. "I need medicine." The words came out more desperate than she intended. "My father, he has pneumonia, bad. His fever will not break and he can barely breathe. Mrs. Fletcher, our neighbor, she said we needed willow bark for the fever and something for his lungs, maybe horehound or elecampane." And she stopped, realizing she was speaking too fast, her words tumbling over each other. The man came around the counter with quick efficiency. "How long has he been sick?" 2 weeks, maybe closer to 3 now. "He is outside, in the wagon." The man was already moving toward the door. Amanda followed him out into the sunlight, where he climbed up into the wagon bed without asking permission. She watched as he laid a hand on her father's forehead, then pulled back the blankets to listen to his breathing. Her father stirred slightly but did not wake. "We need to get him out of this sun," the man said, jumping down from the wagon. There is a room in the back of my building. Not much, but it is clean and cool. I cannot pay for a room. I can barely pay for the medicine. I have $47, and he held up a hand to stop her. We will talk about payment after we get him comfortable. Go inside. There is a door behind the counter that leads to the back. You will find the room. Get the bed ready. I will bring him. Amanda wanted to argue, wanted to maintain the independence her father had raised her to value, but her father made a terrible rattling sound in his chest, and she found herself obeying. She hurried inside and through the back door, finding herself in a small living area that was surprisingly homey. One room opened off to the side, containing a bed with a simple quilt, a washstand, and a window that looked out on the empty plains beyond town. She had just smoothed the sheets when the man appeared, carrying her father with a steadiness that suggested he was used to physical labor. He laid Thomas Garrett down on the bed with surprising gentleness, then immediately began unlacing his boots. "What is your name?" Amanda asked, needing to call him something other than the man in her head. "Caleb Quinn." He did not look up from his work. "I own the ranch about 5 miles north of here. I keep this place in town stocked with medical supplies, both for my own hands and for folks who need them. Not quite a doctor, but I have learned enough to be useful. I am Amanda Garrett." Now he did look up, and his eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Your father is very sick, Amanda Garrett. I will not lie to you about that, but he is not beyond help. I have seen worse cases recover. What do you need me to do? Right now, I need you to sit down before you fall down. When did you last eat?" Amanda tried to remember. They had finished the last of the bread yesterday morning. "I am fine." "That is not what I asked." Caleb straightened up and fixed her with a look that probably worked well on stubborn cattle. "There is bread and cheese in the cupboard in the other room. Eat. I will take care of your father." Pride warred with exhaustion and lost. Amanda went into the other room and found the food he had mentioned. Her hands shook as she cut the bread, and she realized she was much closer to collapse than she had let herself acknowledge. She ate standing up, watching through the doorway as Caleb moved around her father with practiced efficiency. He brought in supplies from the front room, bottles and jars, clean cloths, a basin of water. He mixed something in a cup, then carefully lifted her father's head and coaxed the liquid between his lips. "What is that?" Amanda asked from the doorway. "Willow bark tea for the fever mixed with a leccampain for his lungs, and a few other things." He eased her father back down. "The fever is the most dangerous thing right now. We need to bring it down and keep it down." For the next several hours, Amanda learned what it meant to truly fight for someone's life. Caleb showed her how to mix the medicines, how to get them into her father even when he was barely conscious, how to sponge him down with cool water to battle the fever. He explained what each herb did, why he was using the proportions he chose, what signs to watch for that would indicate improvement or decline. Night fell, and Caleb lit lamps around the room. Amanda's father seemed to be resting more easily, his breathing still labored but not quite as desperate as before. Caleb finally stepped back from the bedside and rolled his shoulders, working out the stiffness. "You should rest," he said to Amanda. "There is another room across the hall. The bed is made up. I want to stay with him." "I expected you would say that. I will be in the front room if you need anything. Wake me if his breathing changes or if the fever comes back stronger. Wait." Amanda caught his arm as he turned to go, then quickly released it, startled by her own boldness. "The medicine. What do I owe you?" Caleb looked down at her, and in the lamplight his eyes seemed softer than they had before. "Nothing. I have money." "Not much, but keep your money, Miss Garrett. You will need it for other things." "I cannot accept charity." "It is not charity," He said it simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It is what a person does when another person needs help. Your father is sick. You drove however many days to get here. You are exhausted and frightened and trying very hard not to show it. The last thing you need to worry about right now is money. Amanda felt something crack in her chest, some careful control she had been maintaining since her father first took ill. Tears threatened, hot and unwelcome behind her eyes. Why would you do this for strangers? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Because 7 years ago, I was dying of fever in a tent outside a mining camp in Colorado. A stranger gave me medicine and asked for nothing in return. He told me to pass it along when I got the chance. He moved toward the door, then paused. Besides, you are not strangers anymore. You are Amanda Garrett and your father is Thomas Garrett, and you are both welcome here for as long as you need to stay. He left then, closing the door softly behind him, and Amanda sat down in the chair beside her father's bed with tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She was not sure if she was crying from exhaustion or relief, or the simple, unexpected kindness of a man who owed her nothing and gave her everything. Her father's fever broke just before dawn. Amanda had dozed off in the chair, and she woke to find Caleb checking her father's forehead, the early morning light slanting through the window behind him. "The fever?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "Nearly gone. His breathing is better too." Caleb smiled, and it transformed his entire face just as she had imagined it might. "He is going to recover, Miss Garrett." The relief was so intense it made her dizzy. She stood up too quickly and swayed, and Caleb's hand shot out to steady her. His grip was warm and firm, and for a moment they stood frozen, his hand on her arm, their faces closer than propriety would normally allow. "Thank you," Amanda whispered. "I do not know how to thank you enough. You already have." He released her arm and stepped back, and she felt the absence of his touch like a physical thing. "He will need to stay here for at least a week, maybe 2. The medicine needs to keep working and he needs rest and good food. You are both welcome to stay. I cannot impose on you like that." "You are not imposing. I have plenty of room and I am often at the ranch anyway. You would actually be doing me a favor, keeping an eye on the store when I am gone." Amanda wanted to argue, but the truth was she had no other choice. Their homestead was 3 days away, and her father could not possibly make that journey yet. "Then at least let me work for our keep. I can cook, I can clean, I can mind the store, whatever you need. If it makes you feel better, then yes. But right now, what I need is for you to get some proper sleep. Go across the hall. The bed is comfortable, and I promise your father will be fine for a few hours." This time she did not argue. She was too tired, and he was right. She stumbled across the hall into the other bedroom and barely managed to pull off her boots before collapsing onto the bed. She was asleep before her head fully settled into the pillow. When she woke, the sun was high in the sky, and for a moment she panicked, thinking she had slept the whole day away. But when she hurried back to her father's room, she found him sitting up in bed, spooning soup from a bowl while Caleb sat nearby. "Amanda." Her father's voice was weak but clear, and the sound of it brought fresh tears to her eyes. "Caleb here tells me you drove the wagon all the way to Marysville by yourself. I did not have much choice." She crossed to the bed and took her father's free hand. "You scared me half to death." "I am sorry, sweetheart. I do not remember much of the past few days." "That is probably for the best." She looked up at Caleb. "Thank you for staying with him. He is good company when he is conscious." Caleb stood up. "I need to ride out to the ranch, check on the hands and make sure everything is running smoothly. Will you be all right here?" "We will be fine." Amanda straightened her shoulders, feeling more capable now that her father was clearly improving. "Is there anything particular you need me to do with the store?" If anyone comes in, the prices are marked on everything. Most folks know what they need. If someone needs help, just do your best. And if there is any trouble, the sheriff's office is 3 buildings down. I can handle it. I believe you can. He said it with such certainty that Amanda felt a warm glow somewhere in her chest. He collected his hat from a peg by the door and settled it on his head. I will be back before supper. After he left, Amanda's father looked at her with a shrewdness that suggested he was recovering faster than she had expected. That is a good man. He is. He gave us the medicine free, would not take a penny. Did he now? Her father set aside the soup bowl. Handsome too, if I am remembering right. Little hard to tell when you are burning up with fever. Papa. Amanda felt heat rising in her cheeks, just making an observation. But her father was smiling, and it was good to see him smile. How long are we staying? He said a week or 2, until you are strong enough to travel. Well then, I suppose we should not waste the time. What do you mean? Her father's smile widened. I mean that you should get to know him better. When was the last time you spent time with anyone other than me and Mrs. Fletcher? I am perfectly content with my life. Content is not the same as happy, Amanda. You are 22 years old. You should be thinking about your own future, not just taking care of your old man. You are not old, and you are my future. I will not be around forever, sweetheart. And I would rest a lot easier knowing you had someone to take care of you when I am gone. I can take care of myself. You taught me that. I know you can, but that does not mean you should have to. He patted her hand. Just think about it, that is all I am asking. The store was busier than Amanda expected. Throughout the afternoon, a steady stream of people came through the door. A cowboy needing liniment for a pulled muscle, a woman purchasing laudanum for her toothache, a rancher restocking his supply of bandages and carbolic acid. Amanda managed each transaction with growing confidence, though she was careful to check the prices twice and make proper change. A young woman about Amanda's age came in just as the afternoon was sliding into evening. She had bright red hair tucked under a practical bonnet and a sprinkling of freckles across her nose. You are new, the woman said, looking Amanda up and down with friendly curiosity. Where is Caleb? He rode out to his ranch. I am minding the store for him. Oh, you must be the girl whose father is sick. Word travels fast in a town this size. She extended her hand. I am Sarah Mitchell. My father owns the general store down the street. Amanda shook her hand. Amanda Garrett. How is your father doing? Much better, thank you. That is Caleb for you. He has a gift with medicine. Probably should have been a doctor, but I think he likes ranching too much to give it up. Sarah picked up a tin of salve and examined it. He is not what you would expect, is he? What do you mean? Most ranchers around here, they would have charged you double for the medicine and thought they were being generous. But Caleb, he has always been different, got a soft heart under all that stern exterior. Amanda found herself wanting to know more. How long has he had the ranch? About 6 years now. He showed up in Marysville with enough money to buy the old Patterson place and has been building it up ever since. Keeps to himself mostly. Comes into town once or twice a week for supplies and to check on this place. Sarah set down the salve and picked up a bottle of rose water. He is unmarried, in case you were wondering. I was not, Amanda started to protest, but Sarah just laughed. Of course you were. Every unmarried woman in 3 counties has wondered. He is handsome, wealthy, and kind. That is a rare combination out here. She brought the rose water to the counter. But he has never shown interest in anyone, far as I can tell. Polite to everyone, friendly to no one in particular. My mother thinks he has a lost love somewhere in his past. Amanda found herself both fascinated and strangely disappointed by this information. She took Sarah's money and counted out the change. That sounds very romantic, or very sad, depending on how you look at it. Sarah pocketed her change. Anyway, I should get back before Papa starts wondering where I am. It was nice meeting you, Amanda. I hope your father continues to improve. After Sarah left, Amanda sat behind the counter and thought about Caleb Quinn. She realized she knew almost nothing about him beyond what she had observed. That he was kind, that he was generous, that his hands were gentle when he tended the sick. She found herself wanting to know more, wanting to understand what had brought him to Montana, what made him smile, what put those old scars on his forearms. She was still thinking about him when he returned as the sun was setting. He came through the door carrying a basket covered with a checked cloth. "I brought supper," he said. "My cook, Rosa, insisted on sending enough food for an army. You have a cook?" "I have a staff of 6 at the ranch. Rosa and her husband Miguel, who is my foreman, 3 other hands. And a boy, Javier, who helps with whatever needs doing. Rosa is Miguel's sister. They came up from Texas with me." He set the basket on the counter. "How was your afternoon?" "Busy. I met Sarah Mitchell. Sarah talks enough for 3 people, but her heart is in the right place. She speaks highly of you. That is generous of her, considering I accidentally sold her mother chamomile instead of peppermint last month." He lifted the cloth from the basket, revealing containers of food that smelled heavenly. "How is your father?" "Sleeping again, but he ate well and his color is much better." "Good. Then you should eat too. You barely touched the bread and cheese this morning." They ate together in the back room, Amanda feeling strangely shy now that it was just the 2 of them. Caleb seemed content with silence, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. It felt instead like the quiet of 2 people who did not need to fill every moment with chatter. Finally, Amanda broke the quiet. "Why did you become a rancher?" Caleb looked up from his plate, considering the question. "I like the work. I like watching something grow from almost nothing into something prosperous. I like the independence of it, answering to no one but myself and the land." "Sarah said you came from Texas." "Sarah talks too much." But he said it with affection rather than irritation. "Yes, I came from Texas. San Antonio originally. Worked cattle drives for several years, saved my money, and came north looking for land of my own." "Do you have family back in Texas?" His expression shuddered slightly. "No, not anymore." Amanda recognized that look, the careful blankness that covered old pain. She had worn it herself after her mother died. "I am sorry, I did not mean to pry." "You are not prying, it is a natural question." He set down his fork. "My parents died when I was 17. Cholera. I had a younger sister, but she died the same year. After that, there was nothing keeping me in San Antonio." "I am sorry," Amanda said again and meant it. "What about you? Your mother?" "She died when I was 5 in childbirth. The baby died too. After that, it was just me and Papa." She traced the rim of her plate with one finger. "He taught me everything. How to shoot, how to track, how to work cattle, how to raid and do figures. He never once made me feel like I was less capable because I was a woman. He did a good job." "You drove a wagon 3 days by yourself with a dying man in the back. That takes strength and courage." The simple praise made her flush with pleasure. "I did what had to be done. That is more than a lot of people would do." Caleb leaned back in his chair, studying her. "What will you do after your father recovers?" "Go back to your homestead, of course. It is our home." "It is isolated, though, is it not? 3 days from the nearest town. We like the quiet. And if your father gets sick again, or if you need help with something you cannot handle alone." Amanda bristled slightly. "I can handle most anything that comes up. I am not doubting that, but there is a difference between being capable and being alone." He held up a hand before she could protest. "I am not trying to offend you. I am just saying that everyone needs help sometimes. Even the strongest people. Is that why you keep this place in town, So you can help people, partly, and partly because I remember what it was like to need help and not know where to find it. He stood up and began collecting the dishes. You look tired. You should sleep again. I will sit with your father tonight. I cannot ask you to do that. You did not ask. I am offering. He carried the dishes to the wash basin. Get some rest, Amanda. Your father is going to need you strong when he is well enough to start being stubborn about his recovery. The next several days fell into a comfortable routine. Amanda would wake early and check on her father, who grew stronger each day. She would help Caleb with the morning medicines, then mind the store while he rode out to his ranch. He would return in the afternoon, often bringing food from Rosa's kitchen, and they would share supper in the back room while her father slept or read the books Caleb brought from his ranch library. Amanda learned things about Caleb in small pieces, like assembling a puzzle. She learned that he liked his coffee strong and black, that he read history books and poetry, that he could play the harmonica though he was shy about it. She learned that he was patient with difficult customers and generous with those who could not pay, often extending credit that he probably knew would never be repaid. She learned that the scars on his forearms came from a childhood accident with a bull, and that he had a deep laugh that showed up unexpectedly when she said something that amused him. And she learned that she was falling in love with him, which terrified her more than anything else ever had. It was not logical or sensible. She had known him barely more than a week. She knew almost nothing about him beyond these small details. But love, she was discovering, had nothing to do with logic or sense. It had to do with the way her heart lifted when he walked through the door. It had to do with the way his rare smiles made her feel like the sun was rising inside her chest. It had to do with the quiet competence in his hands and the unexpected gentleness in his voice when he spoke to her father. Her father noticed, of course. On the 8th day of their stay, when Amanda brought him breakfast, he said without preamble, "You are in love with him." Amanda nearly dropped the tray. "Papa, I do not bother denying it. I have eyes. And he is in love with you too, though I think he is trying very hard not to be." "That is ridiculous. He barely knows me. Time has nothing to do with it. I knew I was going to marry your mother after talking to her for 20 minutes. Her father took the tray and set it on his lap. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Nothing. We have a homestead to run. And he has his ranch. And in a few days we will go back to our lives and that will be the end of it." "That seems like a waste." "Papa, he has not said anything to suggest. Of course he has not. He is a gentleman and you are here under his protection. He would not presume." Her father started eating his eggs. "But that does not mean he does not feel it. I have seen the way he looks at you when you are not paying attention." "How does he look at me?" "Like a man who has found something he did not know he was looking for." Amanda sat down on the edge of the bed, her thoughts tumbling over each other. "Even if that were true, what could come of it? I cannot abandon you. Who said anything about abandoning me? His ranch is 5 miles from here. You could visit as often as you like." Or her father set down his fork. "Or I could sell the homestead and move into town. Get a small place here in Marysville. I am tired, Amanda. Tired of working so hard for so little return. Tired of being so far from other people. If you married Caleb, I could be close to you and still have my independence." "You have this all planned out, do you?" "I have been doing a lot of thinking while I was lying here recovering. Life is short. Your mother and I had only 7 years together, but they were the best 7 years of my life. You deserve that kind of happiness, Amanda. Do not throw it away because you think you need to take care of me." Amanda was saved from responding by the sound of the front door opening. She went out to find Caleb talking with a man she recognized from the previous days as one of the ranch hands who occasionally stopped in for supplies. "There was a fire in the north pasture," the hand was saying. Lightning strike, we think. We got it controlled, but about 20 heads scattered. Miguel sent me to fetch you." Caleb was already moving, collecting his hat and gun belt. "Tell him I am on my way." He turned to Amanda. "I am sorry. I need to go. Of course, we will be fine." He hesitated at the door. "I will be back as soon as I can. If anything happens, if your father takes a turn, send for Doc Harrison. His office is on the other end of town, near the hotel." "We will be fine," Amanda said again. "Go take care of your cattle." He left at a run, and Amanda heard the thunder of hoofbeats as he rode out of town. She stood in the empty store, feeling his absence like a physical thing, and realized her father was right. She was in love with Caleb Quinn, and the thought of leaving in a few days and never seeing him again made her chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with hunger or exhaustion. Sarah Mitchell stopped by that afternoon with her mother, a plump woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile. "How is your father, dear?" Mrs. Mitchell asked. "Much better, thank you. He is sitting up reading." "That is wonderful news. Caleb has such a gift." Mrs. Mitchell picked up a tin of headache powder. "Is he here?" "There was a fire at his ranch. He had to ride out." "Oh dear. I hope it is nothing serious." Mrs. Mitchell paid for her purchase, then said, as if it were an afterthought, "You know, there is a dance next Saturday, town social. Everyone comes." "That sounds lovely. You should come. Bring your father if he is well enough. It would be good for both of you to meet more people." Mrs. Mitchell's eyes twinkled. "And I imagine Caleb will be there. He usually stops by these things, at least for a little while." After they left, Amanda found herself thinking about the dance. She had not been to a social event since before her mother died. Her father had taken her to a few barn dances when she was younger, but their isolated location made regular socializing impossible. She tried to imagine herself at a town dance, tried to imagine dancing with Caleb, and the image made her feel warm and nervous all at once. She was closing up the store as the sun set when she heard horses approaching. Caleb came through the door looking exhausted and smelling of smoke, soot streaking his face and shirt. "Are you all right?" Amanda asked immediately. "Fine. Tired. We found most of the cattle and the fire is completely out." He pulled off his hat and ran a hand through his hair, leaving more streaks of soot. "How was your day?" "Quiet. Mrs. Mitchell came by. She invited us to a dance next Saturday." "Did she now? Martha Mitchell is the town matchmaker. You should be aware of that." Sarah mentioned her mother likes to see people happily settled. Caleb moved toward the back room, then paused. "Are you going to go to the dance?" "I do not know. I have not danced in years, and I am not sure Papa is strong enough yet." "He seems strong enough to me. Saw him this morning threatening to get up and walk around if I did not bring him more books." Caleb turned to face her. "You should go. You have been cooped up here for over a week. You deserve some fun." "Will you be there?" The question hung between them, more weighted than it should have been. Caleb's expression was unreadable in the fading light. "Probably," he said finally. "I usually make an appearance. It is good for business." "Oh, of course, business." Amanda felt suddenly foolish, like she had revealed too much. "I should check on Papa." She fled to her father's room, her cheeks burning. Behind her, she heard Caleb sigh, but she did not turn back. Her father looked up from his book as she entered. "Everything all right?" "Fine. I just made a fool of myself, that is all." "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." Amanda sat down heavily in the chair by his bed. "Mrs. Mitchell invited us to a dance Saturday. I asked Caleb if he would be there, and he said probably for business." I sounded like a desperate schoolgirl. Her father closed his book. "Or you sounded like a young woman interested in a man." "There is no shame in that. I barely know him, Papa." "Then the dance is a good opportunity to know him better. In a different setting, away from this place. Let him see you in a pretty dress instead of covered in trail dust." I do not have a pretty dress. I have 2 work dresses and one that is slightly less worn than the other. Then we will get you one. I have been lying here being useless for over a week while that man has fed us, housed us, and given us medicine for free. The least we can do is let you have a new dress." The next morning, Amanda left her father reading while she walked down to the general store. Sarah was behind the counter, and her face lit up when Amanda entered. "Amanda, I heard Mama invited you to the dance." "She did. I was wondering if you might help me find a dress. Something suitable but not too expensive." Sarah came around the counter with barely contained excitement. "Oh, I would love to. We have some ready-made dresses, and I am pretty good with a needle if we need to alter anything. What color do you like?" An hour later, Amanda had been talked into a dress the color of deep blue twilight, with a modest neckline and sleeves that ended just past her elbows. Sarah had also insisted on a new pair of shoes and a ribbon for her hair. "You are going to be the prettiest woman there," Sarah declared. "Except for me, of course, but that goes without saying." Amanda laughed, surprised by how good it felt. "Thank you, Sarah, for your help and for your friendship. That is what neighbors are for." Sarah wrapped the purchases in brown paper. "I have a feeling you are going to be staying in Marysville. Just a hunch." "I do not know about that." "I do. I saw the way Caleb looked at you when he came in for supplies yesterday before he rode out to the fire. That man is head over heels, whether he wants to admit it or not." Amanda paid for her purchases with some of the money her father had insisted she take from their emergency fund. She walked back to the medical supply store feeling lighter than she had in weeks, the package with her new dress tucked under her arm. Caleb was in the front room, restocking shelves. He looked up when she entered, his eyes going to the package. "New dress for the dance," Papa insisted. "I am sure you will look beautiful." He said it matter-of-factly, then seemed to realize what he had said. Color rose in his cheeks, barely visible beneath his tanned skin. "I mean, I am sure it is a nice dress. Thank you." Amanda felt her own cheeks heating. "Is there anything you need me to do today? Actually, I was thinking you should take the day off. You have been working every day since you got here." "I do not mind the work." "I know you do not. But it is a nice day and you have been inside too much. Go for a walk. Look around town. Let yourself relax for a few hours." It was a good suggestion, but Amanda found herself reluctant to leave. The store had become familiar, comfortable, safe. Out in the town, away from Caleb and her father, she would have to face the questions that had been circling in her mind for days. What did she want? What was she willing to risk? What would she do when her father was well enough to travel? But Caleb was already collecting his hat, clearly intending to walk out with her. "Come on, I will show you around properly, unless you have seen everything already. I have not explored much beyond the immediate area." They walked out into the morning sunshine together. Marysville was busy with the business of a weekday. Women shopping, men conducting business, children running errands for their parents. Caleb walked beside her, occasionally tipping his hat to people they passed, introducing Amanda when appropriate. "That is the bank," he said, pointing to a substantial brick building. "Daniel Rivers runs it. Honest as they come, which is rare in a banker. The telegraph office is next to it, and that building there, the one with the blue door, that is where the schoolteacher lives. Miss Patricia Anderson. She came out from Boston 3 years ago and stayed. It seems like a good town. It is. People look after each other. Not perfect, but better than a lot of places I have seen." They turned down a side street quieter than the main road. "The church is down here, and past it is the cemetery." Amanda glanced at him. "That seems like an odd place to show a visitor." "Maybe, but it tells you a lot about a place, who they choose to remember and how." He pushed open the iron gate and led her into the cemetery. It was well kept, the grass trimmed, flowers growing on several of the graves. This is where I come when I need to think. It is peaceful. It is honest. Everyone here, they had hopes and dreams and fears just like us. They loved and lost and tried their best, and this is what is left. A name on a stone and maybe some flowers if they were lucky enough to be remembered. He stopped in front of a grave with a simple marker. This was Jeremiah Patterson, the man who sold me the ranch. His wife is buried next to him. He had no children, no family. The whole town came to his funeral because he was kind and fair and he made good whiskey. Is that what you want? The whole town at your funeral? I want to matter, Caleb said quietly. I want my life to mean something to someone. I do not need a crowd. I just need to know I did not walk through this world alone, leaving nothing behind but a name on a stone. Amanda's throat felt tight. You matter, Caleb. You matter to every person you have helped in this store. You matter to your ranch hands. You matter to my father whose life you saved. You matter to, she stopped, unable to finish the sentence. He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. To who, Amanda? To me, she whispered. You matter to me. For a long moment they stood frozen in the quiet cemetery, the world narrowed down to just the two of them. Caleb lifted his hand slowly, as if afraid she might bolt, and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. You matter to me too, he said, his voice rough. More than you should, considering I have known you barely more than a week. More than is wise, considering you will be leaving soon. Maybe I do not want to leave. What about your homestead? Your father? My father wants me to be happy. He has been telling me that every day since he woke up. Amanda stepped closer, drawn by something she could not name. And the homestead is just a place. It is not home. Not really. Home is supposed to be where you feel safe and wanted and like you belong. And where do you feel that way? Here, Amanda said. With you. Caleb made a sound that might have been a laugh or a groan. Amanda, I am 13 years older than you. I have nothing to offer but a ranch and this store and a life that is harder than you might imagine. You deserve better. That is not your decision to make. I am old enough to know what I want. What do you want? She looked up at him, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. I want you to kiss me. He hesitated for only a moment, and then his mouth was on hers, gentle and questioning. Amanda rose up on her toes and kissed him back with all the longing she had been holding inside, her hands fisting in his shirt to pull him closer. He made a desperate sound and deepened the kiss, one hand coming up to cup her face while the other wrapped around her waist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, probably. I am going to hurt you. Or you are going to realize you made a mistake and leave, and it will destroy me. Or, Amanda said, we could both take a chance on being happy. He kissed her again, softer this time, filled with something that felt like promise. I have been alone a long time, Amanda. I am not sure I remember how to be with someone. Then we will figure it out together. She smiled up at him. Besides, you were the one who said everyone needs help sometimes, even the strongest people. Using my own words against me, that is not fair. I never claimed to fight fair. He laughed then, that deep, unexpected laugh she loved, and pulled her close. They stood there in the cemetery, holding each other, while the Montana sun shone down and the town went about its business beyond the iron gate. That evening, when they returned to the store, Amanda's father took one look at their faces and smiled. About time, was all he said, but his eyes were twinkling with satisfaction. Over the next few days, something shifted between Amanda and Caleb. The careful distance they had maintained collapsed, replaced by casual touches and shared smiles and conversations that lasted late into the night after her father had fallen asleep. Caleb taught her about his ranch, describing each section of his land with a passion that made her want to see it. Amanda told him about her childhood, about her mother who she barely remembered but whose absence had shaped her life, about her father who had loved her enough to teach her everything he knew. "Bring him out to the ranch," Caleb said one evening as they sat together in the back room. "Before the dance. Let him see the place, meet my people. If you are going to stay in Marysville, he should know what he is getting into." "Are you asking me to stay in Marysville, Caleb Quinn?" He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I am asking you to marry me, Amanda Garrett. I know it is too soon, and I know I should do this more properly with a ring and a pretty speech. But I do not want to wait. I do not want to lose you. I want to wake up every morning knowing you are beside me. I want to build a life with you. I want children with your stubbornness and your courage. I want everything, Amanda, with you." She felt tears welling up, happy tears this time. "Yes, of course, yes. Though you are right that you should have a ring and a pretty speech. I will get you both, I promise." He pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "We can wait as long as you need. For the wedding, I mean. If you want time to plan, or I do not need time, I need you." Amanda tilted her face up to his. "Let us get married soon as it can be arranged. I have already wasted 22 years not knowing you. I do not want to waste another day." They rode out to Caleb's ranch the next morning, Amanda and her father in the wagon, Caleb on horseback alongside them. The ranch house appeared as they crested a rise, and Amanda caught her breath at the sight of it. It was larger than she expected, a solid 2-story building with a wide porch and windows that reflected the morning sun. Outbuildings dotted the landscape. A barn, a bunkhouse, corrals, storage sheds. Cattle grazed in the distance, dark shapes against the golden grass. "It is beautiful," Amanda said. "It is home," Caleb replied. "Or it will be with you in it." Rosa met them at the door, a small woman with graying hair and a smile that could have lit up a room. She immediately enveloped Amanda in a hug that smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. "So you are the one who has finally caught him," Rosa said in accented English. "Thank God. I was beginning to think he would die alone in that big house." "I am not dead yet, Rosa," Caleb protested, but he was smiling. Miguel appeared from the barn, a weathered man who gripped Thomas Garrett's hand firmly and said he was glad to see him looking so well. The other hands gathered around curiously, and Caleb introduced them. Tall, quiet James, young freckled Peter, and grizzled old Walter, who had been a cowboy for 40 years and had opinions about everything. Javier, the boy Rosa had mentioned, was perhaps 14, with bright, intelligent eyes and an eagerness that reminded Amanda of a puppy. He immediately attached himself to the group, peppering Thomas with questions about their homestead and whether they had seen Indians on the trail and did Amanda really shoot her own food. "Some of it," Amanda answered, charmed by his enthusiasm. "Mostly rabbits and prairie chickens." "Nothing very exciting." "That is very exciting," Javier insisted. "Women do not usually shoot." "This one does," Thomas said proudly. "I made sure of it." Caleb showed them through the house, and Amanda tried to imagine herself living here. The rooms were well furnished, but had the unlived-in feeling of a place maintained by someone who did not spend much time inside. The kitchen was clearly Rosa's domain, warm and welcoming and filled with good smells. The parlor had a fireplace and comfortable furniture, and shelves waiting for books. Upstairs were 4 bedrooms, one clearly Caleb's, the others empty. "For children," Caleb said quietly, standing in the doorway of one of the empty rooms. "Someday, if you want them." "I want them," Amanda said. "I want a house filled with noise and laughter and children who are loved." "Then that is what we will have." They ate lunch outside at a long table under the trees, and Amanda watched Caleb interact with his people. He was easy with them, respectful but clearly in charge. They liked him. She could see it in how they joked with him, how they looked to him for direction, how they included him in their conversation as an equal despite his being their employer. "You have a good crew," she said to him quietly. "They are more than a crew. They are family. Rosa and Miguel have been with me since Texas. The others, I hired them when they needed work and they stayed because I paid fair and did not work them into the ground." He leaned back in his chair. "A ranch is only as good as the people who work it. I learned that early." After lunch, Caleb took Amanda riding, showing her the boundaries of his land, pointing out landmarks and explaining his plans for expansion. The wind whipped through her hair, and the sun was warm on her face, and she felt a freedom she had not experienced in years. "I love it here," she said as they stopped at the top of a hill overlooking the valley. "I love the space, the sky, the way you can see forever." "It is yours now," Caleb said. "All of it. Everything I have, it is yours." She turned to look at him, this man who had given her everything without asking for anything in return. "I love you, Caleb Quinn." It was the first time she had said the words, and they hung in the air between them, precious and fragile. Caleb dismounted and came to help her down, and when she was standing in front of him, he cupped her face in his hands. "I love you too, Amanda Garrett, more than I thought possible, more than I knew how to express." He kissed her, slow and thorough, while the horses cropped grass nearby and the wind carried the smell of sage and dry earth. "Marry me soon, please." "How soon?" "Next week. After the dance. Father Thomas from the church, he could do it. Just us and your father and my people. Nothing fancy, just the words that matter." "Yes," Amanda said. "Yes, let us do it exactly like that." The dance was everything Amanda had imagined and more. The whole town seemed to have turned out, crowding into the large room above the general store that served as the social hall. Musicians played fiddle and banjo in the corner, and the wooden floor vibrated with the stomp of dancing feet. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting everything in warm, golden light. Amanda wore her new blue dress, and Sarah had helped her arrange her hair in a style more elaborate than she had ever attempted on her own. When Caleb saw her, his eyes widened and he went very still. "You are beautiful," he said quietly. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He had dressed in his best clothes, a dark suit that made him look both sophisticated and slightly uncomfortable. They danced together most of the night, and Amanda discovered that Caleb was a better dancer than he had let on. He moved with the same quiet competence he brought to everything else, guiding her through the steps with a firm hand at her waist. "Everyone is staring at us," Amanda whispered during a waltz. "Let them. By next week we will be married. They can stare all they want." "You are not worried what they will say. What can they say? That I am lucky. That I managed to convince the most stubborn, capable, beautiful woman I have ever met to tie herself to a boring rancher. They would be right." He spun her gently, and she laughed with pure joy. Thomas Garrett sat at the edge of the room, accepting congratulations from what seemed like every person in attendance. Sarah Mitchell claimed a dance with Caleb, and Mrs. Mitchell cornered Amanda to discuss wedding plans. "Nothing fancy," Amanda said. "Just family and close friends. We want to keep it simple." "Simple can still be beautiful," Mrs. Mitchell assured her. "I will help with whatever you need, and Sarah is already planning to make you a cake. She is surprisingly good at cakes, despite her many other failings." "I heard that, Mama," Sarah called from across the room. It was late when they finally left, Caleb driving the wagon back toward town with Amanda beside him and her father dozing in the back. The moon was nearly full, turning the landscape to silver, and Amanda felt like she was floating. "Happy?" Caleb asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible. It is only going to get better." He reached over and took her hand. I promise you that, Amanda. Every day I will try to make you this happy. You already do, just by being you. The week before the wedding passed in a blur of activity. Amanda and her father moved their things from the homestead, packing up the small house that had been their home for so many years. It was bittersweet, leaving the place where Amanda had grown up, but Thomas seemed relieved to be done with the isolation and hard work. I am getting a room at Mrs. Henderson's boarding house, he announced. Right here in town, close to everything, close to you and Caleb. And if I get lonely, I can walk down to the saloon and play cards with the other old men. You are not old, Papa. Old enough to be tired. Old enough to want a comfortable chair and regular meals and people to talk to. He looked around the empty house. Your mother and I, we came here full of dreams. We thought we would build something lasting. But she died, and I kept going because of you, but my heart was never really in it. Not after she was gone. I wish I remembered her better. She would have been so proud of you, proud of the woman you have become. Thomas put his arm around his daughter's shoulders, and she would have liked Caleb. She always said the best men were the ones who did not need to prove they were strong. They held the wedding on a Sunday afternoon in the small church at the edge of town. Father Thomas, an elderly priest with kind eyes and a gentle voice, performed the ceremony. Amanda wore her blue dress and carried wildflowers that Javier had picked that morning. Caleb wore his suit and could not seem to stop smiling. Rosa and Miguel stood as witnesses, along with Thomas Garrett and Sarah Mitchell. The rest of Caleb's ranch hands filled the front pews, along with a handful of townspeople who had become friends. It was small and simple and perfect. Do you, Caleb John Quinn, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Father Thomas asked. I do. Caleb's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving Amanda's face. And do you, Amanda Rose Garrett, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Her voice was clear and sure. Caleb slipped a gold ring onto her finger, simple and unadorned but perfect. They had picked it out together from the selection at the general store, and Amanda loved it because he had chosen it with such care. Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Caleb gathered Amanda into his arms and kissed her with a tenderness that made her eyes sting with happy tears. The small congregation erupted in applause, and when they finally broke apart, both were smiling. They held a small reception at the ranch, with Rosa's food and music from Walter's harmonica and Javier's surprisingly good singing voice. Amanda danced with her father, who had tears in his eyes. Be happy, sweetheart, he whispered. That is all I ever wanted for you. I am, Papa, I really am. She danced with Miguel and James and Peter, and even shy Walter. But mostly she danced with Caleb, the two of them moving together like they had been partners for years instead of weeks. When the sun began to set and the guests started to leave, Caleb took Amanda's hand and led her into the house, up the stairs to the bedroom they would now share. He closed the door behind them, and for a moment they just stood there, looking at each other. My wife, Caleb said wonderingly. You are my wife, and you are my husband. Amanda stepped closer, suddenly shy despite everything. I should tell you I do not really know what to do. I mean, I know the basics, but neither do I, Caleb admitted. We will figure it out together, like everything else. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and the rest of the world fell away. There was only the two of them, learning each other, discovering what made the other sigh or gasp or laugh. It was awkward and sweet and utterly perfect, and when they finally lay tangled together in the big bed as the moon rose outside the window, Amanda felt complete in a way she never had before. I love you, she whispered against his chest. I love you too. His arms tightened around her. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for giving me the medicine free and adding your heart to the package." He laughed softly. "Best deal I ever made." The first year of their marriage was both harder and easier than Amanda had expected. There was so much to learn: how to run a ranch household, how to manage Rosa and her kitchen, how to balance the books for both the ranch and the store in town, how to be a partner to Caleb in all things. There were moments of frustration when they butted heads, both of them too stubborn for their own good. But there were far more moments of joy, of quiet contentment, of deep, abiding love. Amanda took over managing the medical supply store, riding into town 3 times a week to open the shop and help customers. She discovered she had a knack for it, for listening to people's ailments and suggesting remedies, for keeping the books balanced and the shelves stocked. Caleb was proud of her. She could see it in his eyes every time he watched her work. She also learned to help with the ranch work, not just the household, but the actual running of the operation. She could ride out with the hands to check on the cattle, could rope a steer if needed, could help deliver a calf when the situation called for it. Miguel treated her as an equal, which she appreciated more than she could say. Her father thrived in town, making friends with the other boarders at Mrs. Henderson's and becoming a regular at the weekly card games at the saloon. He visited the ranch often, usually bringing treats from the bakery and stories from town. He and Caleb became genuinely close, spending evenings discussing books and politics and the state of the cattle market. In the spring of 1875, nearly a year after her wedding, Amanda realized she was pregnant. She told Caleb one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, and his face went through about 6 different emotions before settling on pure joy. "A baby," he said wonderingly. "We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Happy does not begin to cover it. He pulled her close. "Terrified too, if I am being honest. What do I know about being a father? The same amount I know about being a mother. We will learn together, like everything else. Like everything else." The baby came in November, a healthy boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's stubbornness. They named him Thomas James Quinn, after Amanda's father and Caleb's quiet ranch hand who had become a true friend. Thomas Garrett cried when he heard the name, and little Tommy grew up knowing he was loved beyond measure. 2 years later, they had a daughter, Rose Marie, who had Caleb's whiskey-colored eyes and Amanda's fearlessness. She was walking by 10 months and talking in full sentences by her 2nd birthday, keeping everyone on their toes. The ranch prospered, growing from a single operation to one of the most successful in the region. Caleb's reputation for fair dealing and quality cattle spread, and he began supplying beef to mining camps and military forts across Montana and into Wyoming. The medical supply store became a gathering place in Marysville, not just for medicines but for advice and community. In 1878, when Amanda was 26 and Caleb was 39, they added a 3rd child to their family, another boy they named Michael. He was quieter than his siblings, with a thoughtful disposition and a love of books that reminded Amanda of Caleb. Thomas Garrett lived to see all 3 of his grandchildren born. He passed away peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1880, surrounded by family and with a smile on his face. They buried him in the Marysville Cemetery, not far from Jeremiah Patterson, and the whole town came to the funeral because he had been kind and funny and a hell of a card player. "He was happy at the end," Amanda said to Caleb as they stood by the grave after the service. "He got to see me settled, got to know his grandchildren, got to live in a community instead of isolated on that homestead. He was happy." "He was," Caleb agreed, "and he was proud of you. He told me that every time I saw him." Over the years, their love deepened and matured, becoming something richer and more complex than the passionate first bloom. They learned each other's rhythms, knew when the other needed space and when they needed comfort. They fought occasionally, usually about silly things, but they always made up before sleeping. They laughed often, whether at their children's antics or at private jokes only they understood. Rosa and Miguel became like parents to Amanda, teaching her Spanish and Mexican cooking and telling stories about Caleb as a younger man that made him groan with embarrassment. The ranch hands came and went over the years, but there was always a core group who stayed, loyal to Caleb and the life he had built. Sarah Mitchell married a cowboy from Wyoming and moved away, but she and Amanda maintained a correspondence that lasted the rest of their lives. Mrs. Mitchell continued her matchmaking ways, and Marysville grew slowly but steadily, becoming a prosperous town with a solid reputation. In 1885, when Amanda was 33, they added one final addition to their family, a daughter they named Charlotte. She was a surprise, coming 10 years after their youngest, but she was welcomed with joy. Tommy was 13 by then, Rose was 11, and Michael was 7, and they all doted on their baby sister. 4 children, Caleb said one evening, watching their brood play in the yard while Charlotte dozed in his arms. We made 4 humans, Amanda. 4 people who would not exist if you had not walked into that store needing medicine for your father. Best decision I ever made, getting sick, Amanda joked. Do not even joke about that. The thought of never meeting you, he shook his head. I do not even want to imagine it. You do not have to. I am here and I am not going anywhere. As the years passed, they watched their children grow into capable, kind adults. Tommy took to ranching like he was born to it, working alongside his father and eventually taking over much of the day-to-day operations. Rose had her mother's independent streak and became a teacher, opening a school on the ranch for the children of the hands and neighboring homesteads. Michael did indeed love books and became a lawyer, though he never moved away from Montana. And Charlotte, their baby, grew up to be a skilled veterinarian, rare for a woman but wholly unsurprising to her parents. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1899, Caleb and Amanda sat on their porch as the sun set, holding hands like they always had. They were older now, gray threading through their hair, lines marking their faces, but their love had only grown stronger with time. Do you remember that day in the cemetery? Caleb asked. When I told you I wanted my life to matter to someone, I remember. I got my wish. My life matters to you and to our children and to our grandchildren. They had 3 so far, Tommy's twins and Rose's daughter. I got everything I ever wanted, and it started the day you walked into my store looking desperate and determined and beautiful. I was not beautiful. I was covered in trail dust and half dead with worry. You were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it. Thank you for choosing me, Amanda. Thank you for taking that chance. Thank you for giving me the medicine free and adding your heart to the package. It had become their private joke over the years, the story they told their children and grandchildren about how they met. Best deal I ever made, Caleb said, like he always did. They sat together as the stars came out, surrounded by the land they had built into something lasting, secure in the knowledge that they had created a legacy of love that would continue long after they were gone. Their children were grown and thriving, their grandchildren were healthy and loved, and they had each other. In 1905, as Montana moved into the 20th century, Caleb fell ill with a fever that reminded Amanda terribly of her father's pneumonia all those years ago. She tended him with all the knowledge she had gained from years of running the medical supply store, using every remedy she knew. For weeks, his condition wavered between improvement and decline. Their children gathered at the ranch, bringing their own families, filling the house with the love and life that Caleb and Amanda had always wanted. Rosa, now elderly herself, supervised from the kitchen, still cooking for the family she had adopted as her own. One evening, as Amanda sat beside Caleb's bed, he opened his eyes and looked at her with perfect clarity. "I am not afraid," he said softly. "You are going to be fine," Amanda insisted, but her voice shook. "Maybe, maybe not, but either way I am not afraid. I got everything I wanted from life, Amanda. I got you, I got our children. I got 56 years on this earth, and the last 31 of them were with you. That is more than most men ever get." Tears streamed down Amanda's face. "I am not ready to let you go. I know, love. But you will be all right. You are the strongest person I have ever known." He reached up with a trembling hand to touch her face. "Promise me something, anything. Promise me you will keep living. Really living, not just existing. You have so many more years ahead of you. Do not spend them mourning." "I cannot promise that. Try anyway. For me." But Caleb did not die that year. The fever broke and he recovered, though it left him weaker than before. He retired from most ranch work, letting Tommy handle the operations. But he still spent his days contentedly reading and playing with his grandchildren, and sitting with Amanda on the porch as the sun set. They celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary in 1914, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The ranch had grown to over 5,000 acres. The medical supply store was still thriving under Rose's management, and the family they had created was strong and close-knit. 40 years, Amanda said, leaning against Caleb's shoulder. They were both in their 60s now, but she still felt the same flutter in her chest when he smiled at her. 40 years since the best day of my life. The day we got married, the day you walked into my store and asked for medicine." He kissed the top of her head. "Everything good in my life started that day." Amanda passed away peacefully in her sleep in 1922 at the age of 70. Caleb found her in the morning, still warm, with a slight smile on her face. The grief was staggering, a physical pain that made it hard to breathe, but he took comfort in knowing she had not suffered. She had simply gone to sleep and not woken up, which was as gentle an exit as anyone could hope for. He buried her in the Marysville Cemetery, in a plot he had purchased years ago with room for both of them. The whole town came to the funeral, along with people from 3 counties who had known her or been helped by her over the years. She had touched so many lives with her kindness and competence and quiet strength. Caleb lived another year after Amanda's death, growing frailer but maintaining his sharp mind until the end. He spent his time with his family, telling stories about Amanda and their life together, making sure their grandchildren and great-grandchildren knew the story of how they met. "She came to buy medicine," he would say, his old eyes distant with memory. "I gave it free and added my heart to the package. Best deal I ever made." He passed away in the spring of 1923, in the same bed where he had slept beside Amanda for 49 years. His children buried him next to his wife, and the headstone reads simply, "Caleb John Quinn, 1844–1923, beloved husband, father, and friend." But their story did not end there. The ranch continued through Tommy and his sons, growing and adapting to the changing times but always maintaining the values Caleb had instilled. The medical supply store eventually became a full pharmacy, run by Rose's grandson, still serving the community. Michael's legal practice became one of the most respected in Montana, and Charlotte's veterinary clinic treated animals for 3 generations. The family gathered every year on Caleb and Amanda's wedding anniversary, sharing stories about the couple who had started it all. They told their children about the woman who drove 3 days through dangerous country to save her father's life, and about the man who gave her medicine and hope and love without asking for anything in return. They talked about how two people from different places, both lonely in their own ways, had found each other and built something that lasted. The Quinn Ranch remained in the family for over 100 years, a testament to the love and dedication of its founders. The house was expanded and modernized, but the porch where Caleb and Amanda had sat every evening remained unchanged, a sacred space where family members still gathered to watch the sunset and remember. In 2000, Tommy's great-great-grandson discovered a box in the attic of the ranch house. Inside were letters Amanda had written to Caleb during the rare times they were separated, along with pressed flowers from her wedding bouquet and a faded photograph from their 40th anniversary. There was also a journal Amanda had kept during their first year of marriage, filled with observations about ranch life and declarations of love for her new husband. The family had the letters and journal preserved and copied, distributing them to all the descendants. Reading Amanda's words, they felt connected to their past in a visceral way, understanding that the life they enjoyed, the land, the businesses, the close-knit family bonds all stemmed from a single moment in 1874, when a desperate woman walked into a medical supply store and found not just medicine but love. The story of Caleb and Amanda Quinn became family legend, told and retold with pride and joy. It was a reminder that love could strike unexpectedly, that kindness had far-reaching consequences, and that the choices we make in moments of crisis can shape not just our own lives but the lives of generations to come. Their descendants knew that on a dusty Montana day in September 1874, two lonely people had found each other against all odds. One had needed medicine, the other had given it freely along with his heart. From that simple transaction of kindness and courage had grown a family, a legacy, and a love story that would be remembered for all time. And somewhere in the hills north of Marysville, the land Caleb had worked and loved still bore his name, tended by people who carried his blood and Amanda's fierce, independent spirit. The house still stood, solid and welcoming, filled with the echoes of laughter and love that had started over a century ago. It was, everyone agreed, the best deal anyone had ever made.